This is a short do-it-yourself on making a kind of a quick filter for your wash machine. You would want this if you have a septic system to keep the lint out of your septic system as much as possible. There's still going to be some slime and lint from the machine. Wash machines are notoriously bad for septic systems, but I really don't have a easy way to make it dry well here or anything for it, so I wanted to get a filter, and I found a few online. They were extremely expensive, and they didn't seem like they would fit in my limited space here. Here's my drain hookup. So I kind of thought about it for a long time, and I finally came up with something that I put together, and you'll have to fit whatever you make to your own circumstance. But I've figured with these pipes, let it hang just like that. Fine and dandy, it's all set. There's a rubber boot that goes over here, and this plugs into it. Last end filter here. Okay, so I tried making a few of these, and this is the one that turned out to be the most successful. Size and shape and all. Actually, I only had one predecessor that was not very successful at all. And then I made this unit, and I got to clean this unit. That's why it's out of the. I'm doing this video right now because I'm taking it apart for cleaning. I put maybe 10 loads through this one, and it still wasn't backflowing. It's not draining real well at this point though. And that's pretty good. I was only getting 2 or 3 loads out of it initially, but I've changed the filtering around. That's why I'm making the video, to show you. These are all electrical supply parts. This is a standard 90-degree box that for outside connections. This little plastic plate comes off. There's a rubber seal here, or actually it's like a caulk, elastomeric caulk. Then I found this piece was a gentle elbow. I cut it down. This is another elbow piece. I cut just a little bit off of it, and I actually heated it with some steam and changed its shape a little bit, relaxed its shape a little bit. It was a tighter bend in order for it to fit in my geometry. So that's what I mean. You'll have to like figure things out yourself for your exact geometry you're going to use. But these are common electrical parts. You can see the glue here. You could probably use plumbing PVC glue. This is a special PVC glue for this electrical PVC. And it did seem to fill pretty well. These connections aren't really meant to hold pressurized water. The whole thing's meant to be watertight, but it's not really meant for plumbing, you know, holding a pressurized water flow. So using the glue liberally, I was able to like fill it and make it watertight. And you see I got a board on top of this thing too. Because this plate really wasn't stiff enough under pressure, water rushing through here, that it wouldn't bulge, especially with warm water, that it wouldn't bulge this thing and leak. So I had to put a stiffener on the lid, short piece of wood. And then I had to get these 2 screws that hold this thing together. And I got screws that matched them very well, except they were a little bit longer to make up for the wood. So that took a little searching around. This is a communications industry type connector boot. You probably won't be able to get this, but maybe a piece of inner tube. So you need this piece, this piece, this piece from your big box store. Need maybe a section of inner tube or some other kind of rubber fixture like this. This one's ideal. This is a dollar store item. These little strainer baskets you can put in your sink. You find these at the dollar stores. I always save these for just this project mostly. You get a bag of apples or whatever. Save the bag. This is actually the big part of my filter. When you have a sink, you use a sock like one of these, or one made for the purpose. There's a lint filter commonly. don't really have a way to do that here. Well, now I do. And what I did here was I took this little ring, and I just changed the sack, but I haven't opened the box yet. I gotta do that yet. This ring is something you're gonna have to try to fit yourself after you get all the rest of this built. I found a bottle, and I cut the thing right under the big rim here, between the main bottle and the big rim. Cut that off. And then I had to shave this first rim off. Actually, I think I cut off this first rim off, actually. Yeah, I cut this off, and then I shaved this second rim off. So this is cut off, and then shaved off. And that resulted in this. Just this rough little piece. But that's what it took in my case to find something that would fit in here tightly. So this has been stuffed in. One of these, cut off the top a little bit, cut it down anyway. You don't want to release the seal. And you got a tight fitting rim. You stretch this out around it. I had this like that. And you push it in, and then trim the fabric. I'm going to try to reuse this one. I already did those steps, so I'm going to see if I can put this in without trimming it. I'm going to be right back. Good enough. And this piece stretches over it. In your case, you'll probably have to use a small gauge bicycle inner tube. Probably would work. Stretch it out and above here and let it shrink down by itself because it's smaller gauge. That would make pretty much the same shape. Or maybe you can be creative and find something else to use. Alright, now I'm going to look in the box. I put the rubber back on. This thing keeps leaking because it's full of lint and it's drooling out slowly. Just let it, because I already got to clean the floor at this point. So I'm going to take it apart. I already changed the sack in here, and that's kind of what makes this work well, is having a sack that fits most of this length, get all that surface area to collect lint, and that's really what's making this work pretty well. This box is kind of like a final filter, and it would plug up real fast if the sack here wasn't getting most of the lint. And that's why my previous versions, my previous attempts with this filter, I was only able to get maybe 2, 3, 4 loads. And I got 2 little screens in here. This one is something I had, and you're probably not going to get, but you'll have this final screen, and you can probably make a second screen like this final screen to sit in here instead of this filter. Alright, so I removed that one tubular screen. It's sitting in the sink, it's dripping. And you probably won't find some of that, but maybe use the big one for a rough screen in here. And that other screen I have, water can leak through it, so around the edges it wasn't really watertight seal or anything. This is the real screen in here. And this is, see, it's got lint in it, so it's slowed down. And this fits right into that hole. And that's simply this middle filter screen from Dollar Store, and made a bend line here and a bend line here, so I would get this shape. And it's caught some of the finer lint that the other big sack has bypassed, and it's finally gotten plugged up. But I got a good 10 or maybe even a dozen loads out of this thing, maybe even more, which, considering my previous efforts, is pretty good. Alright, I took the screens out. Well, I trimmed the thing off, put the boot on, I showed you that already. I took the screens outside, shot them with the hose, cleaned them up, brought them back in. In the winter, that's kind of difficult. I suppose I could make a second set of them. Third or fourth, I guess. We'll put the box back together. reasonably tight, not reefed. And I'm ready to go. Wham bam bang, works pretty well. Didn't cost $300 to make, like some of the ones I've seen online. That's it. Now I suppose I could have simplified this even more if I didn't want my second screen that the box provides, actually second two screens in my case. If you wanted to simplify this project further, I suppose you could get two elbows. Make yourself an S that would fit your situation and come up. You don't really want this any higher than it has to be. You could make a double S, do the rim inside the rim there that holds the socket, and you'd still get most of the benefit of this. So that's something to consider too if you want to simplify it and not put the box on with the vinyl screens. I do kind of like the screens, but they probably are going to block up faster than the sock would by itself. You know, I could probably go even longer if I used a real long bag like this one and had a double S, you know. It'd probably go longer than this thing does. You know, I'm probably getting, like I said, maybe a dozen out of it, a dozen loads or more. And then that screen is starting to get a little slow inside the box. It still wasn't backing up though, so I mean I could have squeezed more out of it yet. But you don't want to have too much resistance here. It won't drain completely. And you really want your washer to drain completely so it doesn't, you know, rat out the innards or stink. So I don't want to wait too long to change it. Don't want it to get restrictive at all. It should drain freely through it. So that's just a little postscript here. You could make a double elbow and only do the sock part of it. Or you can do it like I did and have your double, you know, protection of the screens. But like I said, the screens will probably plug faster than the sock does. My sock that I took out of there, so the screen was pretty well getting plugged. I had a dozen plus loads. And the sock really wasn't that bad. It was maybe, I can actually show you, I've wrung it out since then. So this is the screen that was in the pipe before that I just changed. And you can see it's pretty densely filled. Only at the bottom is really much of a clump. I wrung this out outside and earlier. It's sitting outside to dry. But you know, it probably could have gone longer. So without the screens in the box and just a sock alone, you know, maybe it would go 24 loads, who knows. But, you know, how much filtering do you want? The screen does filter some of the finer stuff. So I like the way I did it. I'd probably recommend going that way. These poly fibers in our clothes nowadays, and even the cotton to a degree, but especially the poly fibers, they're not going to break down in your septic tank. They're going to be in there a long time. Wash machine drainage into the septic isn't such a great deal. That's why if you're out in the farm and you can get away with it, drywall is kind of a nice alternative. I don't know if they even allow that in the township I'm in though. Alright, another little thought to add on at the end here. One thing I didn't show you that I did, I drilled a couple holes, you know, 4 holes in 90-degree angles, put some wires through just as a final little wire stop there. And that is just so I never ever lose the sock down the drain. And that's why you wouldn't want to put a sock in this tube, even with the rim like I showed you how to make a rim. You could just fit a rim into here and have a sock in here. And oh man, no space wasted, no extra lift to the wash machine, that all is good. But if you ever drop that sock in there, you'd really be hell to pay. So I don't recommend doing that.